You, if I'm remembering correctly, have a label in your email called OPP. Could you explain for people what this means?
Yes. So I think originally, it stood for other people's problems. Mm-hmm. Although I made it a little nicer later, other people's priorities. Mm-hmm. And because I have a vendetta against email, which we can dig into, but I've had this experience. I imagine anyone listening has had this experience. Like, all right, your inbox is overflowing. You're like, I'm finally going to deal with this thing. You plow through hundreds of emails, and your reward is more emails.
Right.
But then to the OPP thing, I'm like, wait, then what are these things? Like, what am I doing? And then you realize that, like, you're just basically checking off items on other people's to-do lists. Mm-hmm. Where there's sort of in the abstract, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's important to be helpful, and we all have been helped by and help other people. But you can end up in a situation where your to-do list is a composite of other people's to-do lists, and your calendar and your email can often reflect that. And tying it to another, so one of the most important concepts is focus. Everybody understands, like, focus. And I imagine this is something we'll probably talk more about here. But there are so many forces. People love the idea of focus, and when it was interesting, just going back to Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett and Bill Gates did an interview. I think it's on Netflix. There's like a Warren Buffett documentary, which is great. I also recommend. But anyway, the interviewer was interviewing both Warren and Bill, and was like, all right, in a word, what has made you most successful? And they both at the same time, like, without missing a beat, both said focus. And so if we all, and it's like, seems so obvious. Like, we all know why focus is like, we don't need to be told why focus is important. But then, and one of the things that the effective executive highlights is that there's so many, like, the default for pretty much anything is to unfocus you. And that's true of your inbox. Your inbox is not prioritized. It's just going to, like, you basically get all these requests that are other people's priorities. If you're working within an organization, pretty much everybody will be pulling on you to kind of feed the beast of the organization. And so it becomes very hard to do a few things well. And so, I mean, there's a lot of great things about that book. But yeah, I do have an OPP folder, which I try to keep manageable, or find ways to I think the best is if you can find ways to be helpful, but then, like, involve other people in actually helping. So I have a whole team of people who can help me respond to those kinds of requests.
So now the OPP folder, it's not necessarily a black hole. It's not an indefinite archive necessarily, but it's when I'll get around to it. Do you have a set schedule for looking in the OPP folder or having other people do that for you? And what are the criteria, right? Is it that anything that doesn't come from, say, a direct report or an investor or a family member goes into OPP, or what are the guidelines?
Yeah, so I think some people would say it feels like a call even when I help. So I'm not great at responding to these things. So I mean, it might be, if it's something that's like not a priority, then I'll try to respond in days, but sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months, sometimes you'll get a response that's like, oh yeah, it's 7 months later. It's like, oh, do you still need this? So I think it's, if it is something from a person you have a relationship with, I would say and there's probably other factors, but it's like, okay, is this someone who I know and where I personally would be really helpful, and they have done their homework, and it's like I think there's a certain first pass filters like that. I would say there is no commandment from God that you have to respond to every email you receive. If it's like a cold email, or if it's like from someone I don't know, or it's like sales thing or whatever, then it just goes into the black hole.